And welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, also streaming on expertcresecrets.com, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit your highly appreciated commercial real estate, business, cryptocurrency, stock, and eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange. I'm your host, Brett Swartz. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and business minds in the world where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, I'm excited about our next guest. He's a third generation resident of Palm Springs and an entrepreneur involved in various fields related to real estate. He began his career as a civil litigation attorney and quickly found his passion for real estate, focusing his skills on sales and development. As a principal of Gilbert Already Vacation Rentals, he managed 35 plus vacation rentals throughout the Coachella Valley. Gilbert, lots of different names here. He was in the turnkey rental business. I'll let him talk about that since June of 2018. He is now a commercial real estate broker and president of the firm called The Firm Commercial, and he leads a team of dedicated agents with offices in Palm Springs and Palm Desert, specializing in commercial real estate sales, leasing, land acquisition, development, government relations, and our topic today, value add entitlement deals. Please welcome to the show with me, Adam Gilbert. Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you so much for having me.
Lots of tongue twisters there. And I'm excited to talk about building wealth with value add entitlement deals. Kind of an interesting kind of niche topic, which a lot of folks don't have expertise in, but I'm glad we have you on to kind of shed some secrets on that. But before we go there, would you give our listeners and myself a little bit more about your background and your current focus?
Yeah, definitely. So as you mentioned, born and raised in Palm Springs, which is really where I've created my market and done most of my deals. And Palm Springs is mainly the Coachella Valley, which is about 400,000 full-time visitors or residents. And then it gets up to about 1 million people during the season when people come from all over the world to enjoy our beautiful weather during the winter. And so basically how I got here is I was a civil litigation attorney, was always planning to do that. Took my test to be a broker and started doing some deals on the side. And I was like, wow, this is exciting. I get to get out of the office. And I've quickly used my background and kind of my knowledge of how cities and how entitlement works to start doing a number of deals that not a lot of people can really figure out. And so I took courses and I learned and I tried to figure out this process that people have used to make land and buildings even more valuable, and really used it to have a lot of good projects go forward and create some wealth.
Amazing. We're going to dive into those secrets here in a minute. By the way, you can learn more about Adam Gilbert at thefirmcommercial.com. Adam, I believe you've all been given certain gifts in this life, and some people believe these are strengths and superpowers. I think they're God-given gifts, and I think they've been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. So I'm curious. I want you to go back, high school days, maybe college, maybe early law school days, and I want you to think about maybe 1 or 2 gifts that you believe you were given, and how do those help, how you help and bless people today?
Yeah, I'd say the number one is just being able to think outside the box. A lot of people, everyone has that piece of dirt or that building in their town, and it's just sitting there and no one's doing anything with it. And everyone's asked why, what's wrong with it? And usually it's zoned incorrectly, or there's something wrong that doesn't allow the proper use to go into that building or piece of land. And so if you could think outside of the box and get creative and convince people of your ideas, you can definitely take something that has little to no value and then change the underlying zoning to create a lot of value. So I'd say thinking outside the box is a really important factor that's led to my success.
Perfect. So what's the number one secret to thinking outside the box to add value to land in places that maybe people aren't seeing or hearing about until you're finding it and seeing it or doing that? What's that secret? How do you think outside the box? Maybe it's a better way to think about it when you're looking at land.
Yeah. So when I'm looking at land, the zoning and the general plan usually dictates what can go there. And so what I try to do is I try to look at a land and say, what should go there? And that's a completely different question. And so if you know the process, if you figure out what should go there and it fits a number of factors, one, will the neighborhood allow it? Will the city be behind it? Will I be able to sell it? Can I, then sell it to someone else? You can think about what should be going into place or even predict the future, and really try to help cities and help the community that you live in to put the projects that should be in the proper places.
It seems like these city folks would be able to see and map out and do that. I mean, I live in a great city, Roseville, and I think they're very proactive, very business oriented, and they master plan this community amazingly. But what's the biggest obstacle, let's say, for the city folks, that when you're coming to them presenting the things to help them overcome, why aren't they seeing it?
So the number one thing that I'll say about people who work in cities is they tend not to think outside the box. They are very much rule followers, and say, hey, this is the zoning, this is the plan, this is what you can do within the confines of the rules that we have. It sometimes takes the developer type to come in and convince them, and go through the process. And it is, it's not just something that you can do in 60 to 90 days. This is a year to 18 months of going through all the right channels to do, of getting there. And a lot of cities, their general plans and their zoning is outdated 10, 20, 30 years. And so there's been, in the Sacramento area, there's tons of changes and growth, new people coming in. And so maybe that industrial park should actually be a school, or it should be multifamily or a retail shopping center. And so if you see those types of changes happening and you can predict what it's going to look like in the next 2 to 3 years, you can start your process and then create some value.
Excellent. I absolutely love that. That makes perfect sense. You're right. We all have different gifts, different strengths. And by the way, we need these rule followers. We don't want to beat up on you guys, right? And gals, because otherwise, Adam and I and others like us,
we'd be running amok.
Yeah, running amok, right? The soil contamination, the environment, all the other things that keep these, the wheels on the bus, from falling off. So it is definitely a working relationship with both sides for sure. So, okay, cool. So that's great. So you see the vision, you help them see the vision, you help them see how it can be benefit to the community, to the future, of course, tax revenue as well. And then step 2 is what?
Step 2 is start writing checks. So you got to start the actual process of drafting a plan. So whatever that is, the first one of the projects I did was rezoning a city block to put it to a higher industrial use from the low edge industrial use, so that it could actually be used for a cannabis use. Another project that I'm doing right now is taking an industrial use and making it low density residential. So, probably less of an impact on the environment and that. So, the first thing that I do is I sit down with my architect, engineer, or designer and say, hey, look, this is what I want to do. Let's look at the code, and let's draw out a plan to see what this change could look like. Because if I change something to residential, and then even if that's the case, you can only build one house per 5 acres, it's not going to do you any good. It's not going to be a successful project. So you got to draw it out and then take it to the city and see what they say. Perfect.
Okay, so now let's get practical. Give us maybe your best deal that you've done in the past year or two. Kind of give us the ABC of the deal. What was it? What was the vision? What were the challenges? How did you work with the city? What happened?
Sure. So to make a very long story short, I took a 15,000 square foot warehouse, and what I did is I put an option on it for a year to be able to control the asset so that I can go and get these entitlements. The goal was to get the entitlement, get the zone change, and get a conditional use permit to allow for a cannabis use at this building, and then be able to sell it to a cannabis investor before closing escrow. So I didn't have to come up with the capital to close it. So went through the whole process. First thing at planning commit after months of going through all of the Native American tribal leaders and making sure that they cleared the project. I went to planning commission and they approved my zone change for all uses except cannabis. So, you're like,
it's like they knew what you were trying to do, Adam.
Like they knew exactly what I was trying to do. They had some thoughts on it, and it was 3 or 4 years ago. So it was kind of an interesting time when cannabis in California wasn't as, it was even before Prop 64, I believe. And so then what we had to do is take the planning commission decision, go to city council, but appeal the portion related to cannabis. So that it required some lobbying. And then, ultimately we were able to be successful in getting that zone change. We went and again did plans for how it's going to look as a cannabis facility, getting all the grow rooms approved and all the parking and all those aspects. And so now we have this great package of a fully approved building, but we don't have any more time. And so what we ended up having to do was, something that we were in the project, I think, for 2.1 purchase price. Fair market value was probably like 3.2 is what we could have gotten for it, but we sold it for 2.6 because we needed to close it in like 30 days, and they had to trust us that we had gotten all these entitlements and done. So it was still, I think we probably invested $100,000 in it. So it was like a 5x return. And, we were very happy with that based on that project.
That's phenomenal. I would be too. By the way, talking about building wealth with value add entitlement deals with Adam Gilbert. You can find more about Adam at thefirmcommercial.com. That's thefirmcommercial.com. So growing up, there's this movie, right? It's called The Firm, Adam, right? You may have seen it. And this gentleman named Tom Cruise is this, I think it's Tom Cruise. Yeah. And he's, he's newly married, and he goes to the firm and he's trying to make it in the business. So being an attorney and being in real estate, how is your life like Tom Cruise's?
Well, I do try to be the good one. And so I say, we're the firm, but not like that firm. Actually a lot of the members of the firm commercial are actually former attorneys. I think we have 3 of our 7 agents. We've got a couple of MBAs. And so, there's a lot of fun that we have in Palm Springs in terms of being a resort community. So there's a little bit of the fun life that the firm shows. But, we like to get down to business, but we're a small community, and we care very much about our reputation and who we do deals with because we plan to be here for a very long time.
Amazing. Absolutely love that. And thanks for working with me on that one. I just went to Wyoming for a trip, right? And it's like growing up in the 80s, like Tom Cruise, and there's certain movies that, and not just Tom Cruise, like Brad Pitt, a couple other guys, where you're like, man, that'd be cool to like do that thing like those guys are doing. And so when I was in Wyoming, I had never fly fished before, and had rode a horse like once, right? But all of a sudden I'm on this like cool camp, and it's like the most beautiful country ever. And like, there's a river that literally runs through the camp, right? And there's like these 2 lakes, and then like the cabin's in the middle. And I'm like, and it's like a river runs through it. And so my whole goal the entire week with these guys would be like, hey guys, I just want to be Brad Pitt and a river runs through it, right? So just take me to the thing, let me do the fish thing with the flies, right? Let me let me ride the horse, right? Let me just live my childhood dream. Is that okay? And they all laughed. And these guys were, actual people who know what they're doing out in the wilderness there. And we had fun. So if you had one movie to pick, Adam, that you're looking to live out your childhood dreams, which one would it be?
I would probably either say Blank Check was definitely a really important movie in my childhood, getting that blank check and just having some fun. What movie would I want to live out? I don't know. We'll stick with Blank Check. That was a fun one.
That or Glengarry Gary Ross, right? Where it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Closers,
there you
baby,
go.
Right? Coffees for closers.
That's a good one. Yes, exactly. Always be closing.
So let's talk about commercial real estate. Let's shift gears a little bit from entitlement deals and and representation and the value of that, and being able to help clients create and preserve more wealth in real estate. And coming from your legal background, and also looks like your ownership, I think you bring a level of expertise and understanding to help clients. So what's kind of the vision for the firm commercial, and how are you, what are you doing today to help add value in a really competitive world?
Yeah. So I think the vision, so we have a vision both for our clients. We definitely want to provide top-notch service and help people through it from not only the perspective of a broker who's trying to get the deal done, but from owners ourselves. And so one of the big things of the firm is it always shocks me how many commercial brokers out there don't own commercial real estate. And so one of the things that my goal is for every one of my agents is to be a commercial real estate owner, is to live the life that we're trying to selling and do the deals that we're actually, proposing to our clients. You have a very different perspective when you own a commercial building and you're telling someone what to do than if you've never done it. The same thing with buying a house, even from a residential side. So I'd say that's probably, we're very entrepreneurially minded for our agents to be able to give a different level of expertise.
Couldn't agree with you more. I had the fortune of growing up with my parents and had rentals all our lives, and my dad building construction homes ground up, and in the Bay Area, and then we were at Marcus and Millichap as an agent at the time, started my business and cold calling people, and the goal was not only to help them, right, but it was to get on the other side of the phone, and the way we put that was to own real estate, right, to be able to create passive and active wealth, get the depreciation, offset the cash flow. And in the top 3% of wealth is one of the cool stats I learned during my time there at Marcus Millichap, own commercial real estate, that, the top 3%. So if you can get on the other side of the phone, understand that business, you can build wealth on a big scale and be able to give more and have more time and energy freedom. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. So now let's shift to a separate topic. So Biden is proposing some big, I call them commercial real estate game changers, right? With potentially eliminating the stepped up basis, limiting the 1031 exchange, right? Doubling the federal capital gains tax rate from about 20 to 40. And it's kind of like, wow, like if this happens, I'm curious, again, this is proposals, nothing's passed yet. But being that you've kind of, the government relations side of what you've helped, clients with and the brokerage side and the legal side, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on some of the proposed changes?
Yeah, definitely. So it's definitely had an impact, I think, on the market. I have a lot of people calling me saying, hey, I want to sell this and do my 1031 exchange before the rules change. I think that they're definitely proposals. My thought on it is that I think it's got a very difficult road to get through. I think these are understandable assumptions when people are making these investments, especially in a time where retail specifically and a lot of commercial owners have had some trouble with COVID. There's been a lot of protections for tenants and very few for owners and landlords. So I think that there's going to be some pushback there. But at the same time, I understand if you want to sell your asset, get your 1031 in before then, because those are huge changes that can unfortunately really chill the market.
Yeah, 100%. It's very interesting to find out. That being said, though, the 1031 exchange, sometimes clients have frustrations with it, right? And challenges, and maybe even you've experienced that. So I'm just curious, Adam, from your perspective, what's the biggest frustration you, clients, friends and family have had when it comes to the 1031 exchange?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest frustration is the time limit, and then the property selection. Ultimately, you don't want to have a stepped up basis on your gains, but you also don't want to get into a bad deal. Nothing hurts worse than a bad deal. And so if the market's hot and you want to be in a certain area, you're like, I love industrial. And well, guess what? In Southern California, industrial is really hot right now. And it's, the rents are still fairly low. So, it forces people into bad deals because they don't want to pay taxes, which if there is a correction at any point could be fairly harmful. So, sometimes you have to pay tax, or sometimes it sounds like there's other options available, whether it's investing in an opportunity zone or doing some other different things. But the 1031 definitely has it's a beneficial thing, but it does have its drawbacks.
Yeah, we call it the shotgun wedding, right? You get engaged in 45 days, and they get married in 180, right?
Exactly.
Or the sell high and buy higher 180 days later with more debt and new tenants, new toy. So back in 2008, or 05, 06, 07, I started out like 06 at Marcus and Millichap, things were great. People loved to be sellers, hated to be buyers, right? Mm-hmm. Because they felt like exactly right. They were overpaying for properties that they otherwise wouldn't have purchased if it wasn't for the capital gains tax liability of 30 to 50%, right, of their gain. So now, unfortunately, the ones that were smart either just paid the tax, right, and just said, I'm not doing it. I'm not letting the tax tail wag the investment dog. The other ones, though, they equal or greater valued up, right, overpaid, and then some of them lost half, some lost everything. I don't know if you remember that time. So I found myself as a new broker, like trying to pick up pieces for people and trying to negotiate with banks and go through this whole thing. And then my manager at the time brought in a gentleman to speak on something called the Deferred Sales Trust. And now this is our niche focus that we help people escape the 1031 exchange. And essentially, it allows you to get out of debt, diversify, eliminate the needs for the 1031. Works for cryptocurrency, primary homes, like the 1031 only works for investment property. But what's really interesting about it is we've never been busier, right? I feel like Biden's our number one salesman, right? When he goes out, and talks about the stuff he's proposing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, like, have you heard of the Deferred Sales Trust? A, and then B, what would it mean if someone could sell high, defer tax, wait on the sidelines, tax deferred, and buy back into real estate at any time without using a 1031 exchange? What would that mean for yourself and your clients?
Yeah, so I've definitely heard of the Deferred Sales Trust. Haven't seen it implemented personally in any of the deals so it's interesting to hear more about it and how it actually works. But I think that it definitely solves a huge need and gives people the flexibility. Ultimately, it's been a very crazy year. I was trying to do a refinance on my retail building in March of 2020, which was not a good time. And so, again, people always talk about real estate, location. For me, it's timing, and being able to control the time. Again, if I could have pushed out that option period, I would have had so many more choices and made so much more money. If I had the ability to wait over a certain period of time and do my refinance once, it was clear that not everyone was losing everything during COVID, just 3 to 4 months later, having those options and having that time is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think second to that is having the diversification, liquidity, and the ability to be out of debt, right? Because all of those things are levers for pressure, right? You have too much debt and you're running out of time on the loans and you can't refinance because you have too much debt on other properties. Guess
Mm-hmm.
what? That creates pressure. If you don't have enough diversification, or if a certain particular tenant goes out on a particular property, or there's rent control, or there's certain things that limit your ability to add value, or construction costs go through the roof. Like we just did a deal for a client out of Alabama. I was talking to him today. He sold a $2.6 million business, deferred all the tax, put into the Deferred Sales Trust, and then he's building 70 units in Tennessee, ground up development.
Wow.
All tax deferred with the Deferred Sales Trust, which is pretty amazing, right? But what's interesting about it is he said the lumber costs have like almost tripled. And he's like, gosh, like when I started this thing about a year ago, like we were doing all right, but now like I'm quarter away through this thing, and I'm like, man, maybe I got to reassess this thing. But having diversification, liquidity, and being out of debt, what does that mean for clients in today's highly appreciated market?
Oh yeah, I mean the debt factor is always an important, especially if you're trying to buy multiple properties. They're always looking at debt income ratio and what your assets are. So I mean that's a really important factor. And just to go off on rising prices, I think that's so on point. I bid out my facade enhancement, and I'm changing all the materials. Like I was going to be built out of wood a year ago, and now it's going to be built out of steel, just because the lumber prices are so insane. So again, it's all about having flexibility and diversification, as you mentioned.
Excellent. Awesome, Adam. That being said, we're running out of time. You ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
Believe in yourself.
Perfect. Love it. Second question. What's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Confessions of a Real Estate Entrepreneur by James Randall. It is the book that inspired me to go into commercial real estate.
Amazing. Question number 3. What's the one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Get shit done.
Good. Question number 4. What are you most curious about?
I really like the aspects of kind of like personal finance, and kind of, whether it's credit card points or just kind of different things like that, travel hacks and things like that. That's always something that's interested me, and I wish I had more time to dive into it.
Excellent. Biggest obstacle facing commercial real estate brokerages?
Ooh, snake brokers. Just not having integrity within the community.
Yeah. Biggest way to create loyalty and integrity within the commercial real estate brokerage world?
Be honest.
Yes. And I'd also touch on that because I have a thought for asking this question, right? So creating something or a model where everyone can align as owners, right? Versus just competitors, right? So I call it the renting your commercial real estate versus owning your commercial real estate. So at Marcus and Millichap, I always felt like it was 50-50, right? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll give you my secrets up until you grow my business. But we always had to pay the man. Who's the man? Marcus and Millichap. And these guys are great guys. Super amazing training, really great mentors. But the worst thing was you bring someone in, you recruit for the company, you train the people, you give them the secrets, and then they leave to see Richard Ellis, or B, they go to Sperry Van Ness, or C, they go to the cube right next to you after you've done a couple deals and they start competing with you. You're like, wait, what happened here? Like, I just gave them all of my stuff and the loyalty wasn't there because the model was stacked against us, right? So this is a little plug for EXP Commercial now, which is now changing the way that the loyalty and the camaraderie and the collaboration, because we're literally broker owners with one another. And so the former Marcus and Millichap top agent. He started BRC Advisors, which you might have heard of. He's the president of it. And so I was meeting with him and we were just talking about this subject. And he goes, yeah, when you can align, a lot of those barriers go down. So that's just a little plug for those who are interested in EXP Commercial. You can reach out to me at expertcresecrets.com. Last question is this. After all your success, an attorney, entitlement deals, commercial brokerage, all the stuff, right, that you've been able to achieve for your clients and for your family, I'm curious, Adam, what's the way you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to reach for new heights?
I stay centered by being involved in my community, very much so. I serve on numerous boards and charities, the Boys and Girls Club of Palm Springs, where I grew up, very important to me. And then making time for my family. I have a 7.5-month-old son, my first. His name's Aiden.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so that's the bags under the eyes that you see. And, it's just, of course, timing is always great. When you're at your busiest is when you just throw like the most important thing in your life into it. And so he's given me all the reasons to continue to work hard for him, but also putting limitations on myself and making sure that when I'm home with him, I am present and there for him.
Love it, man. It's 7.5 month old. It's like the puppy dog stage, right? Like they're just
rolling around,
rolling around. And then, I guess the puppy dog stage, depending on when they walk, and my kids walk at different ages, but like as soon as you start walking, then they become like the puppy dog, like just grabbing and chewing and moving and flipping things over. But really cool. Well, congratulations on the new baby boy. And I also want to thank you for being on the show. And I want to encourage you to keep thinking outside the box and finding ways to add value for your clients and for yourself to do more deals and to bring communities, to the full potential through land entitlement. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, would you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
You can find me at thefirmcommercial.com or on any social media. I'm usually at Adam Gilbert 13.
Amazing. Adam Gilbert, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being with us. And I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and commercial brokers, they struggle with clarifying their tax deferral options. And not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange. Never feel trapped by the timing aspect, right? Defer capital gains taxes on the sale of a primary home or a business, cryptocurrency. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to get the free ebook of ours and to also schedule a one-on-one consultation if you're curious about learning a little bit more. We're also on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is really exploding as well. And on iTunes, of course, for this podcast that you might be listening to right now. So that's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Thanks for listening to the show. We so appreciate everybody.